Hi everyone and welcome back to Chess for Charity. In this video, I'm going to show you such a cool puzzle that I came across on chess.com and it is just insane. Take a moment to appreciate this position here. It's white to move and the pawns are going up the board here. Black has 3 passed pawns, 1 in the B file and 2 on the A file, threatening to come down and become queens. Your job is to see if you can either win this as white or draw it if you can't find the appropriate win. Take a second, see if you can figure it out. It's a tough puzzle, I'll give you that, but give it your best shot. And while you're thinking about it, be sure to subscribe as well if you have not already. Half of the income that I earn on this channel goes directly to charity, so every subscription helps me out a lot. Okay, let's get started here. So this puzzle is crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. So notice that Black's king is kind of boxed in, and just for context, if the first move you're thinking here is bishop takes knight check, that sounds like a good idea because these bishops are cutting through, but it's not really going to work because after b2, what are you going to do to play for a win here? Right now, Black is stalemated, so you have to do something that breaks this stalemate, and you're not really going to do that. If you give up a bishop, you'll end up actually losing the game. So you pretty much have to just wait with a move like h6 or moving the bishop somewhere, and that will lead to a stalemate, right? So let's get the first move out of the way immediately, and the variations get crazy after this. The first move is h6. Great. And from here, Black has 2 moves. They can play b2, getting ready to try to promote this pawn, or they can play king b2. So king b2 is the worst of the 2 moves, and I'll quickly show that variation, and then I'll go down the line with b2 with the pawn. So if king b2 is played, the best move for white here is to play h takes g, so you're setting up this discovered check once you move the pawn. And Black doesn't really have anything here. They can move out of the way, but then I'll still be able to eye this corner square with my bishop. So just the most resistance against the computer, they would play a1 equals queen. You play g8 equals queen. That is check. The king moves out of the way. You don't have to take the queen in this position, although I would. The best move according to the computer is queen takes b3, but I'm not playing that because if you take their bishop, you have a mate. That's the idea. So I would play just as a human being here. I would take this, and if they play b2, you have this check, forcing the king out of the way, maybe something like king d2. And here's the key move, queen c2 check, forcing the king out, and then take, and they have 1 square to go to, king f4. They're not stalemated, and you have a nice checkmate here. So king b2 is not the best defense, we'll say. So what about b2? And this is where it gets crazy. So if you think it's not too crazy yet, stay tuned because it gets nuts here. b2. Okay, sure. What's the difference? I play h takes g, right? Importantly, I don't play bishop takes because like before, this will create a stalemate-like situation. Black has no moves because this pawn is pinned, and these pawns are going down the board, remember. So they can't move any of these things, and these pawns can't move, and of course this king can't move, which means it's stalemate. Okay, so you play h takes g. Now here's where it gets really fascinating. Let's just say Black is thinking, okay, white is going to push their pawn and become a queen, right? That's what they would think. So what I'm going to do to trick them is I'm going to promote to something that's not a queen. That way, when they promote to a queen, I block and try to create stalemate again. So let me show you what I mean. So let's say, for example, Black promotes to a rook and white promotes to a queen. Black now interposes with the rook with this check, and this, just like before, is going to be stalemate because white can't create a move for Black. This is all going to be gridlocked here, We're making Tetris pieces in the corner here. First we had this one, and now we have this one. Look at this. So, okay, they can't promote to a queen if black promotes to a rook. That's the key message I'm trying to say here. That's the point I'm trying to get across. So black is trying to be very sneaky and promote to a rook. Just for clarity and being comprehensive, if they promote to a queen, that fails, loses pretty quickly. G8 equals queen, and now this queen has to give itself up. An important note here, you don't have to take this really slick move, I think, personally. Queen B8, attacking this pin piece, and black pretty much has only a few moves. They have to move this queen somewhere on this diagonal, or they can just take. In either case, it's going to lead to checkmate with the two diagonal attacks, one with the queen and one with the bishop. So, in either case, just to be comprehensive, if they want to promote to a queen, it will not work. They see that, so they promote to a rook instead. Okay, so we just looked at the line that said, if they promote to a rook, you promote to a queen, and it's a draw. So you don't promote to a queen. Instead, you have to go real crazy here and promote to a rook to match them. And if you've seen my video on the Babson task, you might think about that for a moment as well, where one side promotes and the other side matches their promotion. If you haven't seen that one, check it out. It's one of the most beautiful puzzles ever. Okay, so what now? Well, rook b2, right? Because the whole point is it's just check, and the king can't move because the bishops are coming down here. And here you have to find a key move. There are two moves that are pretty much the same, but one's slightly more efficient. The move that is just so smart is rook to g6. Now, why is this move a good move? Well, this move is allowing the king one square, so you're not stalemating like you were before. So notice, just to make sure the details are clear here, notice that if this was a queen, I can't execute the same strategy because putting the queen here would be attacking b1, which would be stalemate. That's why the king cannot run away. But with the rook, you're now allowing the king access to this b1 square. Do you see the difference here? It's kind of a small difference, but that's the beauty of promoting to a rook instead of a queen. And just again, just to be sure I'm clear here, if in this position you want to take here because you're thinking that's good, that's not good. A takes B. Remember, the pawns are going this way. And this is a scary threat here. You might think it's winning, but this is a draw. Rook b8 trying to cover this. And after a bunch of exchanges, b1 equals queen. You can take with the rook or the bishop. It doesn't really matter. It's all going to end up being the same. This is now stalemate the other way around. Now white is stalemated. Isn't that hilarious? These are all stalemated because, of course, the pawns and the bishop. Cool. So just to make sure I'm covering all the lines here, I know I won't be able to cover them all, but just to be as comprehensive as I can. So the critical line, let's talk about it. Rook b2, I play rook g6. Again, the idea is giving you an escape square. You make use of your only move, king b1, and now there's one move that is a checkmate in 7. See if you can find it. It's quite tough, the whole sequence. The first move might be intuitive. Okay, rook c6 is the move. Why rook c6? Well, look at what this rook is doing. It's cutting off the c file. So now the king can't run away this direction. Instead, the king has to either go back or, because it's currently check, the rook has to interpose on c2. Well, if the king plays king a1, what do? Well, you just checkmate them. Because remember, this bishop is a killer and this rook is pinned. So they can't play rook b1. Okay, so you can't play king a1, which means you have to play rook c2. So how do you win this if you're the white pieces? There are many ways to win it. You don't have to try to be an engine, find the best move every single time. I think it's worth thinking about that, but you don't have to. So a cool sequence, and the best sequence in the computer's eyes, is to play rook takes c2, which is kind of a funny thing because usually you don't want your opponent to promote, but in this case, you are literally forcing them to promote because they have no other moves. So a1 equals anything. A1 equals question mark, pretty much. We'll put a queen on the board. And now the bishops here are both just bearing down on the king and queen. This rook, if it moves, will give discover check to the king. And there's only one move here that produces a mate in 5. See if you can figure out the mate in 5. Not so easy, but it's not too crazy either. So in this position, rook e2 check. And you might wonder, why e2 and not d2? Let's talk about that. So king c1, only move. And now what do? Well, you just take this queen. This queen can't be around the entire time. So that's why you had to put your rook on e2 instead of d2, because the tempo required to take this queen, that would have hung your rook. Oops, that would have hung your rook right here on d2. Okay, now there's just a couple of options here. King d1 will say, bishop plays here, holds it all together, and there's nothing to worry about here. Even something as simple as this is enough to mate, just like that. And there are a lot of ways to do it. They could have played this move instead. It doesn't matter. It's still going to be checkmate. If they wanted to, they could have played here, and just to make it look fancy, that's nice too. That's a nice aesthetic mate there. So, what is the moral of the story here? First of all, this puzzle is nuts. This under promotion, this double under promotion, is something I feel like is really rare. I've only seen it a few times. But black promoting to a rook just so that white has to mirror them and promote to a rook themselves. It's such a cool puzzle. Again, the idea of under promotion is so incredible because you're purposely taking a weaker piece. And you're saying, I don't need the queen because the queen would stalemate you. Not that diagonal. The queen would stalemate you. I need the rook instead. So just a cool theme. Hopefully you were able to figure it out. If you didn't get it from the beginning, maybe somewhere along the way you were able to find it. Let me know in the comments. I enjoy hearing the feedback and talking with everybody in the comments. But that's it for now. Thank you so much. Bye.